Hello and welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism. I am your host, Alex Williams, and today, as so often, I am joined by Nick Laporte.
Hello.
And Ethan Myers.
Welcome back, you beautiful people.
They, truly are beautiful. We do have the most good-looking audience on
Many
planet
people
Earth.
are saying this.
Many people are, in fact, saying this. We're going to start off with some updates today. We got some, actually, this week had more stories. Last week felt kind of short, but this week we got more stories and more listener emails, so we got a jam-packed show, so we're going to jump right in with a little message from our friend Nick.
Oh, that's me. Hello. Yes, I finally decided to grab the panhandle, and I opened up my own Patreon page for my YouTube channel. Thank you. And I'm offering a few things. Not much, but, some credit at the end of the videos, along with possibly some extra content. I actually have one video planned in the not-so-distant future that'll be exclusive to the Patreon page. So it's up there. It's just at patreon.com/nickthedoor.
Nothing more exciting than that, folks. So, Nick has a Patreon. I have a Patreon for Climate and Transit. Alex, you don't have a Patreon for Humane Cities, do you?
I don't have a Patreon for Humane Cities.
He's not all about the money here, but what else has a Patreon? Radio Free Urbanism, folks.
Wouldn't you know?
It's true.
Who would have thought? Over there, you can join our live shows for just $1 a month. You'll get access to that. And if you can't make the live shows, it's okay, because you'll still have access to watch the show as soon as it's out. So that means that while everybody else is stuck watching on Thursday, you'll have access on Wednesday when we're recording.
True.
So if you want to support the podcast and get a few perks like that and join our lovely viewers like Skitch, Jen Hall, and Austin,
who are all in the live chat.
Exactly. They're watching live.
Yeah, and
slacking
Skitch
off
actually
from
says...
work.
Skitch says, I hear the Radio Free Urbanism patrons are really cool. And to this we can attest. It is true. We do have the coolest patrons. And if you're cool, obviously you're also going to be a patron. So thanks for that. Thanks for the support. But let's get on with today's show. I have a quick update for people, kind of about a story that we've been following for a little bit. And this comes from, I've got an article here from City News. And they recently chatted with Chris Chesson, who is he's working with the Beltline Neighborhoods Association to try and get some movement around the idea of pedestrianizing 17th Ave, which has a bunch of shopping and restaurants in Calgary. This is something people talk a lot about because there are patios there every year. They kind of add the patios up front, and they add some extra bike parking out front, and they try and beautify 17th Ave a little bit and make it more pleasant. But we still have a lot of loud cars riding down there, which kind of makes it hard to enjoy those restaurant patios in the summertime. So I'm just going to share this quick quote from Chris in the article. It says, "We have received over 1,000 positive responses of people saying they would visit 17th Avenue more frequently, and what may be surprising to some is that we have heard over 50% support from businesses in the area as well, including the National, Jameson's, Ship and Anchor. They have all voiced their support for this program." So there's actually some movement going on here to support this, which is exciting. So maybe next year we'll get kind of a pilot project, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday sort of thing. So we'll see, but we'll keep an eye on that. In the meantime, let's hop over to Ethan for a transit story.
Absolutely, folks. Our first story of the day comes to us out of the Bay Area. So, for those of you who don't know, the wonderful connection between the cities of San Francisco, California, and San Jose, California, is mostly done by a rail service called Caltrain. Now, Caltrain, for the most part of its existence, has been operating with diesel engines and gallery cars. These are quite outdated pieces of rail technology. They really started coming around in like the 50s and 60s, so it's it was definitely on the older school side of operations, and it really didn't match, what they wanted to do in the Bay Area for transportation between two of the biggest areas. So we've actually covered this story a little bit here, that Caltrain has been electrifying their network. And recently, we just got news, as of Monday, that they have started rolling out their first two Stadler-Kiss electric multiple unit trains to run along this corridor. Now, this is the first actual passenger service that they're doing now. They actually had a big old event there. Nancy Pelosi showed up, Gavin Newsom showed up, so the chair for the head of the Democratic Party and the governor of California were both there for this opening. They're both from the Bay Area, so it was very exciting to see this event. It's a big one, and it's also, on top of it, part of California high-speed rail. So the funding to actually build and electrify this portion of the network was done from funding for California high-speed rail, which started all the way back in the mid-90s. So this is some of the first fruits to bear from this massive project. It's not just the high-speed rail itself, it's a bunch of improvements to regional corridors like this section here. So fully electrified trackage. They're starting out speeds right now at 79 miles an hour, but they can be upgraded to 110 and eventually 120 mile an hour operations. Significantly faster than what was there before. Now, they still do have some diesel engine service because the route actually runs all the way down to Gilroy, which is south of San Jose, but regardless, it's still exciting to see this portion of trackage get electrified. Well,
Yeah.
I know you guys have some thoughts on this project. It's been a long time coming, at least.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for this. And what you said about still, running some of these diesel engines, I mean, that makes sense if not all of the trackage that you're running things on are electrified, but also you have the trains, right? I don't think we necessarily need to just constantly create more ways, just throw things out. But this is really exciting because it's forward looking, it's thinking towards the future. And you also mentioned that the track is it has capacity for higher speed trains as well.
Yeah,
so that's something
This is the right of way that they're going to use for the last section of California high speed rail. When trains are going from LA to San Francisco, this is going to be the last little bit of trackage that they're going to be going on. So it's going to be that last bit of connection to actually get passengers from downtown LA all the way into downtown San Francisco.
Sweet.
Also, on top of that, if you're looking to buy a EMD F40 diesel engine, Caltrain has posted one up on their merch store.
Wait, they put the actual engine up on their merch store?
They did.
On the merch store?
Yes.
Okay, you gotta share your screen. I gotta see this.
Let me find it. I gotta see.
That's kind of awesome. We were looking at some of the old C trains the other day and thinking, well, I think they're gonna retire the last one this year of the original 40-year-old stock that we have, and we were joking it'd be cool to buy one and keep it as an office. Pretty cool. We could record Radio Free Urbanism out of that.
Here. I found it. I found it, folks. We should absolutely be recording Radio Free Urbanism if we have the space out of this F40 right here.
That's amazing. It's used.
This gently used,
So it's
lovingly maintained
discount?
1985 F40 diesel locomotive could be yours. The historic locomotives come with 40 years of service and more than 1 million miles traveled. Perfect for your model train set, train-themed diners, ornamental lawn decor, or planter box. Unconventional bed and breakfast, or just to show your overly gnomed neighbor's lawn.
Price?
If interested, send
Market
us a
value.
message.
Yeah, I love this. Jen in the chat says, "Oh, good. I've been looking to buy a train," and Austin says, "Can I afford it? Probably not." But honestly, Austin, where there's a will, there's a way, right? I think if you really cared, Austin, if you really cared about trains and like trains, I think you could do it. And Skitch says, imagine parking that in a driveway instead of a boat or an
You could
RV.
live in it. You could probably live in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but then your HOA would come after you.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Unless you don't have an HOA, Then you're pulling big brain moves.
You know what?
It would be
We
a
should
perfect
open up a
ADU,
trailer park.
guys.
Let's open up a trailer park where instead of trailers, we all just have train cars.
Just gutted
Yes.
F40s
Yeah.
and
It's-
duo-eggs from C-Train.
Yeah, it's where all of the old trains go to retire and be lived in by train nerds. You know what? I kind of love that. Jen
Well, they're
says,
weather
"Deal,
sealed.
a train co-op community." I'm down. I'm down.
Well,
So I have some questions. So I love this. I love electrification of trains. I've ridden Caltrain twice when I visited the area. It was great. This was a while ago. But so aside from the benefit of obviously switching over to electricity and not spewing out diesel fumes from the engine, what are the benefits of switching to?
that's a wonderful question. So not only are we going to see increased accessibility because of platform level boarding, which the gallery cars do not have. So those specific cars that don't have that. But with this electrification, Caltrain is going to be using what's called an electric multiple unit. And so the power of the train is actually spread out. So there's not just one leading locomotive and a bunch of cars being pulled by it. So this is going to actually speed up operations because acceleration is going to be much faster from the actual multiple unit. It's already faster with electrified locomotives, but when you have an electric multiple unit, you're going to see much faster acceleration. And with short stop distances, a diesel train takes a lot of energy to get started up and stopping again. An EMU doesn't take that much. It has that speed to go consistently more at a higher average speed than, say, a diesel train. So you're also going to get that. On top of this, you're going to have just overall better interiors and more doors for exiting and alighting for entering and alighting the train, meaning that your dwell times are going to be significantly lower at stations. This will speed up operations and overall just make the customer experience on board Caltrain infinitely better than how it's been before.
So
Awesome.
these trains, are these going to be used largely by commuters? Is that kind of the
Yeah,
plan
so
here?
that's really kind of what I mean. All commuter railroads in the U.S. have been targeting for less towards that 9 to 5 commuter rail service and more towards a daily service because they know that riders don't just ride, especially in a post-pandemic world, at the 9 to 5 job. While there's still a lot of demand for that, it's definitely shifted away from that to a more even style service pattern. So yeah, they're going to be targeting commuters, but they're also going to be targeting the more general rider. And I mean, there's a lot of people that need to get between San Jose and San Francisco. They're both huge job centers. A lot of people live in both. So it's going to be massive to help connect these two cities.
That's great. That's super exciting, and especially in the case of commuters to be able to get on and off, and level boarding. This is a huge thing. I don't understand like how some places don't have level boarding, and at some stations it seems like such a small thing. Can you tell us anything about like what the deal is with level boarding and why some places don't have it for some reason?
So the main thing on why why places won't have level boarding, all trains, just to clarify first, are going to have some sort of wheelchair access to the train. But level boarding makes it so much easier for people who aren't as physically able to board the train than, just having that one area. So a lot of older designs didn't have to meet the same level of accessibility requirements as they do now. So there's one really good example. I know you know this, Alex. The older C trains have this sort of step-up stairs into them to the higher, actual seating platform, correct?
That is incorrect.
Really?
All C trains are level boarding. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, even the oldest
But
models?
I know some trains. I know some trains do have like the step up.
Well,
it's just
yeah.
yeah. We have the high floor and the platform has always come up to the level.
Yeah. No, what I mean is like the whole train having the exact. Okay, so it's gotcha. I forget. It's a whole high floor.
It's all level on the C train.
Gotcha. So one thing is that there's a very common design for commuter rail trains in the U.S. at least. I don't think any Canadian cities have gallery cars anymore. But the design of it was one door in the middle and you would have stairs going up. And this is quite possibly maybe the worst design for accessibility possible, because not only are you limiting how many doors to enter and exit from on the train, as most outside of these gallery cars will have 2 or even 3 doors, but not having that level boarding means that, yeah, people in wheelchairs and people who have accessibility issues, people who have bikes as well too, parents who have strollers, stuff like that, anything that's on wheels is going to have a much more difficult time actually boarding and alighting the trains.
Yeah. Yeah, even, and I'll note here, Austin does say in the chat, he says, but the U2's suspension is weighed down by the more people who are in it. So the old U2's empty, which is used on the C train lines in Calgary, were slightly higher than the platform. So I guess there were some instances where if the train was empty, it would be like a little bit of a lip. But what you're talking about with like steps up, I know in the Netherlands, the trains that I rode there, you get on the train, and because it's a double decker, you get on the train and you have to go up some steps always, and it's always like a little bit tight, which can make it difficult for people in wheelchairs, people using walkers, people with strollers, with carts, any sort of thing like that can kind of make that rail a little less accessible to people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's a model actually from some of the older Caltrain trains. This is a gallery car, and if you can see, there's only one door on it, and that actually has steps walking up. So at best, you're going to get some sort of wheelchair lift on board, but yeah, without that level boarding, it makes it that much more difficult to board, and it increases dwell times at the stations, which is how long a train has to wait at a station.
Yeah.
And doing that can add delays to scheduling. It can make service less reliable. So just having this ability to have better or shorter dwell times for each train just gives you that flexibility and that improved speed. Because the less time you spend at a station, the more time there is to actually travel between stations, pick up service, pick up frequency, everything along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah, I always appreciate hearing your thoughts and experience with different rail systems, because we have different criteria that we're trying to use to determine what's the best thing for this situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? If you're using like a metro, you might want a lot of doors on the metro because you're transporting people with short spaces between the stations. And you're trying to get a lot of people on and a lot of people off as quickly and efficiently as possible so they can get around the city. Whereas if you're taking a long journey, taking a little bit longer to get on the vehicle isn't as big of a deal. If you're like, well, we have 300 kilometers between the first stop and the second stop, so we're able to kind of use that dwell time, right? Like,
absolutely.
If the C train had 15-minute dwell times, nobody would use it. But if a high-speed rail that is taking you across the country has 15-minute dwell times, you say, okay, well, that's the deal. I'm going a long distance, right? So yeah, all of those little pieces and components kind of help us determine what mode we want to use.
Absolutely. The shorter the journey, the shorter we're willing to wait for. It's like an elevator, right? Like if it takes longer than 15 seconds to open after you're pressing that button, you're like, what the hell's taking so long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going only a couple stories, right? Like, I'll just take the stairs then, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, elevators are public transit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just vertical. Yeah. I think that's great. Ethan.
Absolutely. It's very exciting to see this project finally bear fruit, and hopefully it'll be a really good part of the California high-speed rail operations.
Yeah, and I'm going to give Jen in the comments, she left a really great comment here that we'll wrap up this story with. She says, non-level setups also make the people that need the special ramps and assistance feel like a spectacle and an inconvenience. They choose cars before trains because you don't want to feel like you're inconveniencing anybody, like you're holding people up. I think that's a really, really great point, is choosing the right tool for the job in a way that allows everybody to just get around the city like normal human beings. Great insight, Jen. I appreciate that. And we'll go to our next story with Nick.
This is coming just after the wrapping of the Olympics in Paris. So this is in relation to Los Angeles. So Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is preparing for the 2028 Summer Olympics with a plan for a no-car games. The city will expand public transportation and borrow 3,000 buses, with public transit being the only option to access the venues. Bass aims to reduce traffic by encouraging remote work during the 17-day event and building on strategies from the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. So this is very interesting. So looking at this, we're still a ways out, and they're still trying to figure this out. They don't have confirmations from businesses and about that. So in 1984 in Los Angeles, what they did is they had businesses stagger their work hours so that the traffic wouldn't all be flowing at the same time. This is before we had cell phones, right, and work from home and stuff like that. So what they're going to try to do is encourage businesses, if they can, to have their employees work from home during the 17 days of the Olympics to reduce traffic. So, but this is very curious, to borrow 3,000 buses to help people get to the games is going to be very interesting. I'm super interested to see how this works out, because this is a complete contrast to Paris. Like, Paris is, like, by definition, a 15-minute city. Like, the borders of Paris, you can get around on the metro, super easy. Cycling's become fantastic in the city. Walking is relatively good. And this is the complete opposite, right? Like, LA is one of the car capitals of the United States, if not the world. So I'm really curious to see how this turns out for the next Summer Olympic Games. But what I wanted to talk about is how these are opportunities with the Olympics. And I know there's a whole controversy around the Olympics with politics and that. But you think about all of the previous Olympics we've had in history and how many of them have a lasting impact on our transit. So obviously, me in Vancouver, great examples, the Canada Line, which is the north-south line of the SkyTrain system that goes from downtown Vancouver through to Richmond all the way to the airport. So it's the one I often take when I go to the airport if I have to fly somewhere. It's absolutely fantastic, super convenient, and has completely changed the way that so many people move around the city. Again, in, was it Torino, I think? Is it in 2006? They added a new metro line. And even in Salt Lake City in 2034, they're planning on, obviously, we've talked about the Rio Grande plan and other changes that they're looking at doing to make the city more accessible. And it's really great when those things can be implemented, and now we have a better way to move around our city. So that's the thing I'm most curious about with LA. Are there going to be lasting changes? Or is this just going to be a temporary thing? We're just going to change some things around. We're going to bring in some buses, borrow some buses from some other city or something like that, so that we can move people around for the duration of the games. I'm hoping that's not the case. But yeah, what do you guys think about this?
So we've already seen the pendulum shift in LA towards transit. I mean, we've seen ever since 1984, none of the LA Metro network existed for that Olympic Games. But now we have the A line, the C line, the E line, the K line that are all light rail lines. We have the B and the D lines that are actual heavy rail metros. We have the G and the J lines, which are bus rapid transit lines. We've seen HLA pass, which is super exciting. They're about to get the airport connection going. They've got the D line extension. They're looking into the Sepulveda line extension, which won't be open for the Olympics, but they're still looking into actually building that. But I think the pendulum has very much shifted in favor towards LA being a more transit-oriented city. This is going to be the third time that they're hosting the games. The first time they hosted it, they had the Pacific Electric streetcars going everywhere for every venue. So there was no need to even have a car for that one. Then you had the 1984 games that caused, massive traffic regardless of all the buses. You actually see photos from that time, and there are actual bus lines. But on top of this, yeah, I mean, every transit agency's been doing a lot. I forgot to mention MetroLink. So there's a regional rail system out there as well, too, that's been making some reasonable improvements. So I think it's really this bus ordering is going to be a supplement to the already existing transit of Los Angeles. It still has a long way to go before it's anywhere close to Paris. But it's absolutely stepped up in terms of its transit game. And it's really exciting to see that it's not just the Olympics that's kind of gearing LA up to actually build transit, but it is exciting to see that is becoming more and more of a part of the city of LA and their actual strategy for moving people around rather than focusing entirely on cars.
Yeah, I think the Olympics, for all of the many, 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 many problems with it, can do a pretty good job at accelerating some of these projects. You have Brightline coming up, which I'm sure would happen with or without the LA Olympics coming up, but it has accelerated that timetable, right? It's kind of said like we're going to do it
Sets a
before the
deadline.
Olympics, right? Like it says like we're going to actually get this done, and this is the day, right? We want people to be able to take advantage of this, and so I'm excited to see how this goes and how additional effort gets put into these changes and this growth. I saw some pictures floating around, you know, the ones we always see with like the big lines of cars, all the traffic in LA, and people saying, "What are we supposed to do when the Olympics are here?" And it's like, guys, trains. You know, you mentioned lines of buses, and the solution to lines of buses is trains, right? Like the
No, it was literally people
so-
waiting for buses. Yeah, crush-loaded buses.
Right.
It was bad.
like you have lines of cars. The solution to lines of cars is buses. The solution to lines of buses is trains, and the solutions to lines of trains is what did you do? Like
One
what,
more track,
what
bro.
is happening? How many people are you trying to pack in here? That's crazy. So I think this provides some opportunity to make some advances here, because obviously like LA is a busy place regardless, and it's busy with cars. But I think if you're able to show people like, hey, get to the event this way, like it can show that there is another way to get around. Of course, hopefully a lot of these changes will stick a little bit more rather than just being like, hey, we had a bunch of buses and now we don't. And I will say, like, LA has transit. I've used transit in LA to get from like faraway suburbs to the airport and things like that. So yeah, I'm optimistic. We'll see how it goes.
I think it's gonna be great. I mean,
Yeah.
like we were talking before the show, I'm just excited to watch some baseball in the Olympics again. You know, it's disappointing when it's not there, but yeah, I am optimistic, but I'm wondering just how much of this specific games is going to leave a lasting impression on the transportation system in LA. But yeah, I don't know what else to say.
What I do know is LA is going to have a pretty sick-looking custom tap card for when the games come out.
Oh yeah,
They are like the masters of having the best like custom transit cards out of quite literally any city on this planet. I swear.
I feel like it's also not that hard, you know?
No, it's not, but most
Like-
agencies don't try. Like
No.
LA goes
Yeah.
out to like local artists and is like, "Hey, can you design a card for us that looks really cool?"
what's the
Like-
ugliest card? Here, let's slam some service right now.
One
comes
to mind is
has a
the
really
Opus.
awful one. What?
Yeah,
Opus.
Opus is
Opus?
It's not a nice card.
It looks like a '90s debit card.
Is that
Yeah.
Montreal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me here. You guys riff a little bit. I'm gonna Google and see if I can find any ugly transit cards.
Well, we talked about nice ones. Ethan, what do you think are nice ones?
Honolulu has the Holo card. That's a really good looking card as well. I actually don't have a lot of mine on me right next to me.
I like the Ikoka card, which is like the Western Japan one, just because it's silver and it has a little penguin on it, and it's cute.
I'm partial to the Charlie card too. This one's a pretty solid one.
That's good.
Can't
I
lie
like
about that. Tap's original one is kind of meh. But
I've got this one, Tim Hortons card.
ooh,
That's in the drawer.
That'll
it's not
get
in
you
my
going.
wallet because it just never gets used.
that'll get you going. What else? What else do we have?
I
Oh, you
found
got a
this
collection.
Ooh.
I found this collection, this picture of somebody's collection on Reddit.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I none of these like are awful, you know, like I feel like it's hard to be offensive, but actually maybe this one on the bottom. I don't know what actually this one with the ladybug, that's not
Indian Railways is
that's not
actually
great.
really
I
good
That looks
looking.
Eastern European or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that yeah. Let's see.
The
Yeah,
octopus
there's
card.
Opus.
Oh,
We're not a
it's-
fan. This is
Chinese.
Yeah, it's just not like it's not artistic. It's not nice.
Hangzhou?
And I'm not like I'm not anti pragmatism. I'm a very practical person. But a transit card, like putting some nice artwork on a transit card, that's just part of your branding.
You can still make a debit card looking one still look good. Like SEPTA does it with the key card.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not rocket science. None of them I think are too awful, right? Like I think the point of all of them is to get you around, and if they're fulfilling that purpose, then I can't hate them. Austin says Arc in Edmonton is kind of ugly. Pego from Winnipeg is surprisingly well designed, but the name is weird.
I mean,
it's Winnipeg. You gotta roll with something, right?
It's cute.
So we'll see. Maybe we'll get some comments about what the ugliest card is.
Yeah, that
people can let us know on YouTube.
It's going to be some city in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I like the ones that are trinkets. Those are my favorite. I know we've talked about it on here.
Vancouver did that. Didn't they do the SkyTrain themed one?
Yeah, when we had brain fart, buddy from the Metro Vancouver Transit Union. He had one of those, obviously. But even the Big C, this is not, well, I guess it's public transportation, but the bike share in Montreal, I know Patrick from the Urbanity has one where you just kind of stick it in the machine and it unlocks the bike for you. But yeah, there's a SkyTrain one where it's just like one on your keychain. It's a little SkyTrain.
Yeah, I love that. That's legitimately like one of the ones I'll probably have to scrounge eBay for, but
maybe I can get one. I think you can still buy them. Something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You just have to go to you have to go to like the waterfront downtown station, I think. I'll look into it.
All right. Well, I think we should probably move on to our next story, unless we have any other thoughts on transit and the Olympics.
We will move on momentarily, but first I have to share one last thing with you guys. Where is open?
What will it be?
In new tab. Wow, this is really small. Okay, so this is like a not a great quality image, but I'm just gonna share this
non-great quality image.
Yeah, here. Which one is this? Yeah, okay. So this is the monthly pass for Calgary Transit. Okay, it's not amazing. You pick up your monthly pass. They change the color each month to make it distinct. But this is the Calgary Transit logo, and I hate it. This is not good. It's just like the normal City of Calgary branding with transit in the little box where they put the department. Right?
Is it made of paper? Is that why it's in a little plastic case?
Yeah. This was somebody's card, and they put it in there. But let me show you the old Calgary Transit logo, which I love, and it needs to come back. Look at that, Calgary Transit. That's so much better. It's like we're going somewhere, and it's also CT. Ah, man. We'll bring it back. The retro era Calgary Transit. But let's move on to the next story here. Banff. We've talked about it a gazillion times on the show. And recently, either last episode or the episode before that, we talked about Banff going to have this referendum about whether or not to have the pedestrianized Banff Ave. And I have absolutely devastating news. People voted to dismantle it, to no longer. This is it. This is the end of the pedestrianized zone on Banff Avenue, and I'm pretty heartbroken about it. So it was like a difference of 130 votes or something like that.
Recount. We need to recount.
Right. I know. And
Alex cast his ballot. Yeah. Stop the count. I want to preface this whole conversation with like, Banff is a place where real humans live. It is not like a place that I own as a Calgarian. I live near Banff. People fly to Calgary to get to Banff, but I don't own Banff. I go to Banff. I'm a visitor when I'm there, and I don't believe that people who are visitors to places should control places.
but I am very, very sad to see that this is what people voted for. And also, when I say people voted for it, it's like 2,500 people voted in this referendum. But it is very disappointing, and a lot of it was the concerns about traffic. You shut down a couple blocks, suddenly all the visitors are driving, they're diverting around Banff Ave, which ends up with people driving more through the residential areas. So I can appreciate some of the concerns that people had, but the real solution to this is let's just stop driving to Banff. Let's build a train to Banff so that when people go there, we can visit it nicely without clogging up neighborhood streets with visitors parking there. Those are kind of my initial thoughts. I want to hear your guys' take on this situation, but as well on just like pedestrianized zones in general and how we communicate them and how we make them better without negatively affecting the area around it.
Yeah, and I'm not here to say that these people's concerns aren't legitimate. Has traffic been diverted? And we've looked at maps of this before. Of course, some traffic is going to be diverted into the more residential areas. That's absolutely true. But I feel like there's other solutions to this other than just saying, oh, no more pedestrian zone. So it is really disappointing. And the thing I wanted to talk about when we bring this up is not necessarily the fact that it is a bummer that this won't exist here anymore for the summertime, which is, it's just so stupid. But the whole area, and not just here, but across the whole world, we see these places get busier and busier and busier. And what happens is more and more and more and more cars are going there. It's a huge problem we're having right now in the Vancouver area, kind of north towards Squamish and Whistler. We have so many beautiful parks to explore, places where people go hiking. And there's this whole concern about conserving nature, right? And that's a problem, a legitimate problem. Too many people go along trails, disturbing wildlife, feeding wildlife, etc. But we don't really talk about the massive parking lots we have at the base of these walking trails a lot of the time. And I've been to Banff. You see the same thing. Like you go over to Lake Louise and then Moraine Lake, they have a shutoff. They're like, oh, too many cars have gone in. No more cars today, right? We need better public transit to those places so that we don't, destroying our beautiful parks so that we can put down asphalt. The classic line from Joni Mitchell, pave paradise, put up a parking lot, right? It's exactly what we're doing. So public transit would be ideal for these places.
I 100% agree. As someone who's lived in a smaller tourist city, it really is kind of, there's always this older mindset when it comes to it, and a lot of these people really don't want anything to change there. But the problem is that even small tourist areas are still very fluid environments. They're not going to remain stagnant. Even places that feel like that they never change are always going to have some sort of change, and you need to embrace that. You can't just fall behind and let yourself get overrun with gridlock of car traffic. You need to make some sort of adaptations. Now, especially for national parks and stuff like that, it really would be vital to have some sort of, way to get into them and access them without needing to, have a car, and also have a more sustainable solution to getting around the park. E-bikes are a great way for getting around parks. I mean, especially mountainous ones like Banff is. Straight up, your legs are going to die if you try and bike through there. But if you have an e-bike, flattens those hills immediately. Now, for getting to and from the park, train is ideal, but if not, a bus is another great option as well, too. Now,
and there is Rome Transit. We do have bus transit in the area, but it could be bolstered, right? Like we could do a better job. And I think part of the problem too, if you have to drive to get to the park, you're not necessarily going to be inclined to take a bus around the park, right? Whereas if you took a train to the park, well, hey, there's the bus. Let's just hop on that, right? Like you're already taking transit. But by making that first step in the trip into a driving trip, the whole trip becomes a driving trip, right? Because that you're already doing
absolutely
it, right.
You're also always going to get those people who are going to claim, "Oh, I can't bring all my gear on a train or whatever." You can, trust me, and you can.
Do you know what though? Honestly, if you feel like you can't, fair enough, totally fair enough. If you feel like you need to drive. Like I think that is 100% okay. I don't think we should just like tear up all the parking lots, but I do think that we should provide other options. I talked to a lot of people who hate going to Banff, who hate going to these places because they have to drive there. And it's not just about getting there and finding a parking spot, but there's also traffic on the way there. And sometimes you end up getting stuck in that traffic on the way back. I've been in a traffic jam on the highway driving between Banff and Calgary, and it's not like there's a ton of stuff in between there. Those people are all driving from Banff to Calgary, just like me. And so I think it's a no-brainer to have more accessible transit here, and people experience the same thing. I'm going to share my screen here. Nick, you mentioned Moraine Lake, which actually Moraine Lake, that road is closed to motor vehicles, to private vehicles now. But there is the option to ride an e-bike. They do have like an e-bike rental service that you can ride down there and enjoy the space down there. And that way it can actually accommodate more people. But I'm going to show Lake Louise here. Here are a bunch of the parking lots that Nick is talking about. These parking lots, if you leave from Calgary any later than like 4 a.m., you will not get a parking spot here. And this is a gorgeous lake with a gorgeous hike. And what they do have, though, is across the highway here, you can drive up to, is it these ones here? There is it's up here. So if you drive up to this parking lot and park here, this is like a gravel lot, you park here and then you can take a big bus across the highway and then get dropped off at Lake Louise. So to get over here, you can drive up here and then take a bus across. That works, but wouldn't it be so much easier if you just had a train from Calgary, where you're probably coming from, and then we're able to hop on a bus from there? Like, we're already making people take buses in a lot of these situations. We already know that at some point in their journey, they're going to have to leave the car behind. It'd be so much more convenient and probably more economically reasonable, not to mention safer and more comfortable and cooler, to just take a train to the mountains.
Is the parking free?
I think, is it free? I think at the lake might be paid, but if you're taking the shuttle, I think the shuttle parking is free, but then you go and get on, like the parking is included in the price of the shuttle.
So we need to have better public transit access. And I know, because we camped like really close to Banff, like the actual village, and we took public transit around to like Lake Louise and the other mountains. I think it was like Inkpots or something. I can't remember. But we need better public transit, and we need to have pricier parking. Like if it's filling up that early, it's too cheap. It's too easy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of these spots, they become like an Instagram bucket list thing. There are other lakes you can visit,
totally.
And I think if you create a public transit system that is getting people around, not cars, you might actually be able to invest in spreading the people out a little bit more. Banff National Park is a huge place, and if you're able to spread the people out, you say like, oh, we actually just opened up a new line to Lake da-da-da, and then suddenly people are going there a little bit more instead of all crowding Lake Louise. This then lessens the environmental impact that people are having on these trails and on these spaces, as well as making it so that the people who actually need to get to that specific spot and maybe drive to that specific spot, then that specific spot might be a little bit more available for them as well. That's kind of my thinking of it. And of course, we're talking about pedestrianization in Banff, and all of these things are connected. It all kind of comes together and benefit each other, right? They all make each other better. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts. I'll also note here, Austin in the chat says, and remember, Canmore's downtown is still pedestrianized. Support Canmore instead. And maybe, you could. Although the last time I went to Canmore and had nachos, they were kind of disappointing. That's a story for another time.
Yeah, we also, I mean, this is just a national parks thing in North America as well, too. I mean, we have maybe, I'm trying to think of it, 2 national parks that you can access by train directly. And yeah, I mean, some parks have some better transit around the parks than other ones, but still, it is very much a thing that we need to work on, especially as well, too. You know, micromobility is huge with this. E-bikes especially. There's one park near Las Vegas, Zion National Park, actually completely bans access on the Canyon Road, but you'll have it's very similar to, you know, Banff in the way that it'll have a massive parking lot right outside of that, with the main area actually being only accessible by either their shuttles or by bike. So it really it's the same for every other park out there too.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've been to Zion National Park, and it doesn't make it not worth visiting. Right? Like,
it's still it's beautiful.
And it kind of can help preserve some of that beauty as well. One last note on this pedestrianization topic. I mentioned 17th Avenue earlier in the podcast. I want to give a kind of preemptive shout out to the Unsprawling podcast. Chris Chesson, who was in that article I quoted earlier, he is going to be on the Unsprawling podcast talking about some of the kind of hopes and goals for the 17th Avenue pedestrianization, and I'm sure Banff will come up in there with that news coming out this week. But yeah. So we'll see. It's not the end of the road, but it is a little bit disappointing right now.
It's a deadly fixed object in the way of pedestrianization.
The old DFO.
Yeah. Well, Ethan, do you want to take us to our first listener comment?
So let's roll into our listener mail, folks. We don't have a jingle. Unfortunately, Alex is still writing that down. But we have this first question, and it comes from one of our live viewers in the audience. Skitch says, I'm wondering if you have any wholesome stories of making friends or building community while using active or public transportation.
Interesting.
I have a gazillion. Nick, do you have one in mind?
I'm just thinking about critical mass. Critical mass is like, if you don't know, critical mass usually happens in many cities last Friday of the month, where people go and take to the streets because we all own the streets, and it's a safe way to experience your city in a different way, where you can ride your bike down the middle of a street with a bunch of other people. It's fun. It's friendly. It's a great time, and I've met a lot of people through going to that. Yeah. That's always fun. Nice. I've become friends with a lot of people I've met at critical mass. Yeah,
that's great. My one experience that I'll share here, and I may have shared it on the show before, but I like the very like micro socializing aspect of active transportation and public transportation. Is that you don't necessarily like sit and strike up a conversation and now you're besties and you're like going for a drink that night and hanging out, and then it's your best man at your wedding. That's not something that I've experienced, but one thing that I have experienced are these micro socializations. On one of the bus routes that I take to work, there's this lady who gets on at a different stop than I do, and gets off at a different one than I do. But we always see each other on the bus, and we overlap a little bit. And whenever she gets on the bus, she sees me. I'm a familiar face to her. She's a familiar face to me. And being able to just like, you know, see somebody in your community that you don't know but you recognize is really pleasant. And one day, the bus was super busy for some reason, and she gets on the bus and she has to sit beside somebody because there wasn't space for her to have her own 2-seat bench to herself. And she came and sat next to me. I've never said a word to this lady, and I'm not necessarily like an intimidating looking person, but I've also experienced on the bus when somebody like looks around the bus and chooses, like, you can tell they actively chose not to sit next to you. You know, I have experienced that. But she chose to come and sit next to me not because she knew me, not because we were besties, but because I was a familiar face, and there were a lot of strange faces on the bus that day. And so I like those, just like, oh, I recognize that person. I don't know them, but I recognize them. And that's something that I really appreciate about public transit. What about you, Ethan?
Yeah, so I don't have like a ton of these stories, but I still do. One of my favorite ones is always helping people out with the public transportation system. No matter where I am, I always seem to get this look. I feel like people can just sniff it out of me that I know public transportation. But
Yeah.
I will always get questions of, am I on the right platform? A couple weeks ago, this guy had no idea where he was going. So I told him, he asked me for directions. So, it was his first time taking the bus in like 3 years. So I gave him directions on which stop to get on at this stop, and then which transfer to take, what time it was coming. And, it's always great to have those apps as well, too, that can help you update, on like bus times and stuff like that. And also it's good to know the network as well, too. So that way you can just help out people, if not yourself, when it comes to, just being able to help out other people that, you've run into. Also on top of that, some of the events that I've gone to, the opening of the Northwest Extension in Phoenix was a really cool event to go to. It's really cool to meet some other urbanists from, a specific community, that being the Phoenix, urbanist community. And it was just really cool getting to meet a whole bunch of, familiar faces with very similar ideas on public transit compared to, the normal people in my life who aren't, as passionate on the topic as I am.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think we can all agree that that these are not just like active and public transportation. That's what we call it, but we could also call it social transportation, because you do make more connections this way. Let's go to the next comment. Nick, you got this one.
Indeed. This is from Jen Hall, friend of the show. You get to go for coffee IRL with any online urbanist you've never met. Who would you each choose? Who wants to go first? What about you?
Well, I could choose anybody in this chat. We haven't actually met in person.
Damn it, I was going to say that. I'd be like, I was going to choose you two guys.
But should it be somebody that we like haven't talked to?
Or at least, haven't like acquaintanced with in like high detail yet, because
Right. Anybody got one?
Well, this is funny because like in the past 3 or 4 months, I've met several online urbanists in person, literally for coffee, that I've been fans of for a long time. So I've been very fortunate. Like I feel so fortunate to be in that position where people are willing to like meet up with me and have a beer or a coffee. The latest one was when I was in Amsterdam, all places. I got to meet up with John from Active Towns. We spent an hour shooting the shit. It was awesome. It was so much fun. I'm looking through my YouTube subscriber list to try to figure out anybody who I would be like, that's up on the list. Like, I don't know. Oh my God.
Let me see. I got to think about this because it is interesting.
This is a very political question for all of us.
This is Is this a political? Who do we line?
I'm probably going to meet up with Ben Durham in a few weeks in London, Ontario.
I like
Ben's
Ben.
great.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of great work. He's got a new podcast, Wheels and Beyond, with Ben Durham. It's very good.
Oh, really?
He's just
okay. I'm
released
gonna
2 episodes
have
now.
to check that out.
Very well done.
Let's see. Okay, who haven't I met? Oh,
Tom.
You haven't met
Tom's
Tom?
my pick. Tom from Shifter.
you haven't met Tom?
Met Tom. Haven't talked to him. Haven't met him.
I met Tom very briefly. I don't know. Did I tell you guys this story?
No.
I was going to the same event as him, and I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, hey Tom, are you here for such and such? And then I also said like, oh, Alex Williams, and he's like, yeah, I know, and he's like, yes, and then I was like, okay, it's downstairs, and that was our entire interaction, was just me giving him directions and him also saying that he knew who I was. So,
kind of a big deal.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me.
Not to brag or anything. This is such a good question because there are a lot of like interesting people, and I want to say like obviously I want to meet like Ray from City Nerd, but I'm trying to think of like somebody else, maybe somebody that's like not as big of a deal, Let's see. Although now whoever I say, it's going to be like, oh, you don't think they're as big
The
of a
longer
deal?
it sits around, the more pressure builds. I'm honestly, I'm gonna say
That's
I want to
true.
meet Caleb of Classy Whale. Kind of
Oh, yeah,
smaller
yeah.
channel,
Yeah.
about our size, but really cool guy. Talked to him online quite a bit,
Yeah.
but
Do you know what? I'll say Paige Saunders. Paige always seems like a nice
Yeah.
person. I also do I do want to meet John from Active Towns as well. I really like his podcast.
Oh, it's so good, and it's back. He was off for like a month and a half or whatever, but he's back. I'm so happy.
I mean, there's a lot of creators I want to meet. It's not like there's a whole list at this point. It's there plenty.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paige definitely is on my. I almost had a chance to meet up with him in Montreal, but he was busy. I have his phone number though, so I feel like privileged now.
You are privileged.
Skitch
Wow.
in chat just said that she met City Nerd, which I mean he was just in Phoenix, so he also does seem like a presence though.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah, Skitch says City Nerd was intimidating to meet, and Jen met Tom at the Winter Cycling Congress, as well as all the War on Cars people. I know Jen.
Yeah,
I don't know if she met all of them. I don't know if all of them.
I
were
think
there,
at least
but,
Sarah and Doug were there. I met Sarah Goodyear in San Francisco briefly. Yeah.
If either of
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
met Reese,
But there's a lot like Reese.
yeah, Reese Martin,
Reese.
on Transit.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
Reese.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in this space talking about this
Yeah.
stuff, and it's nice to hear a lot of different perspectives and getting different points of views on how we experience the city, and as well as like having disagreements on what different things should be, right? I love chatting with my urbanist friends and being like, no, this project should be the priority because of this, and then they say, no, this one is more important, obviously. But yeah, there's a lot of good people to meet. Maybe someday, we'll do like a tour where we'll do like show in Calgary, show in Vancouver, and then a show in Vegas. We'll have like a big meetup in each of these places because obviously we are the most popular.
Many people are
and
saying
sought
this.
after urbanists.
We are definitely the
It's
most
true.
popular podcast about urbanism and stuff.
We
It's
are.
it's true.
We are in fact the most popular podcast where the hosts live in Vancouver, Calgary, and Las Vegas.
That's very likely.
100%. That specific combination, where else are you going to find that? I dare you to find it. But I like this. And in this episode, we've had a lot of integration,
Integration.
and conversation with the people in the live stream chat, which of course you can join by going to patreon.com/radiofreeurbanism.
Or you can email us at radiofreeurbanism
Yeah.
@gmail.com and send us a question.
or comment on the YouTube video. And with that, I'm gonna read this last question here that comes from Matt Montgomery, who commented on our last YouTube video. Thanks, Matt. And Matt says, car dependency flies under the radar for most people. What do you think are some other detrimental dependencies that society bears but doesn't think about? This is like actually such a
It's very good.
Yeah.
Good
Very
question.
good question, Matt. Thank you so much. As
yeah.
it's a good question,
Anybody-
it's very difficult to answer.
Yeah. Anybody have any initial thoughts on this one? Maybe people in the chat too.
like it's so myopic right now. Like our lens is so like focused right now. Like mine
yeah.
is for sure that all the things that I'm thinking of, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cars. Like that's cars. Like noise, like
Blame
parking,
cars.
space. Like there's so much of it, right? It's like the question. It's like, what is something in the future that we're going to look back on and say, what the fuck were they doing?
Yeah, and how do you know? And I also, like, you're talking about our lens being focused. This happens in any situation. I talk to people who are passionate about our armed forces, and they kind of see, like, the world through that lens, and they say, well, the reason we have these problems is because we're not doing this over here with this specific thing. And people come at that from an education perspective, from a healthcare perspective, any kind of other big societal thing that you might find somebody passionate about.
Yeah.
they're gonna have like an opinion that
It's gonna be like the one
that's
thing.
the solution. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's their one
Yeah.
thing.
I
Yeah, so other dependencies.
That's so tough because anything that we're going to come up with, there's going to be some group of people like ourselves of that one that they're kind of fighting for, right?
Yeah.
This is one that my sister cares a lot about. She's into creating stuff, and she's into fashion, fast fashion, and like disposable fashion, and the fact that we don't reuse our clothes and we dispose of our clothes quickly. I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people who have like literally shirts with holes in them, and I'll still wear them. That's just because I don't have any fashion sense and I don't care. But yeah, I think that's a big deal. That's something that a lot of people don't really
It's
even
that
think about.
thrift aesthetic you got going on, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a winner's aesthetic. Like, if I was in the States, it'd be Ross or whatever. Whatever
Yeah.
is cheap. Maybe that's
Goodwill aesthetic
that's one
going
that,
on.
That comes to mind, I suppose.
Do you know what? I'm gonna say food. I'm gonna say the food that we eat. It's very normalized to just like eat garbage food, and I'm not exempting myself from this. This is not something that I like think about on the
I'll
daily.
crush Tostitos
right? Like,
queso.
oh yeah, like I ate nachos and cheese,
Destroying
for-
my Taco
for
Bell
lunch.
box combo, my Panda Express, you know.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of good food out there, and we're fortunate. Like in the winter in Canada, I can buy strawberries, right? Like we have a lot of great opportunity to have great food, but I also think trying to make sure people have access to like quality food, because it's not about the calories, right? It's about what's in those calories. And so, yeah, even though we have more food than ever, I think we tend to eat the junk food because that's cheaper, it's easier, and it keeps us going. So that's kind of that's something I think a little bit about. Maybe that's a small dependency, is not eating good
Yeah.
food.
And local
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
fresh food.
Yeah.
Need to eat our
Yeah.
winter vegetables in Canada when it is time for that.
Yeah.
Gotta
yeah.
get your
Well,
vitamins.
I'll also buy.
Squash
Also,
soup
I'll buy.
every day.
Hey, do you know what? You can't knock.
It's
squash
really
soup.
good. Like, yeah.
And you can't knock borscht. Like there are some really good things that you can make with like real hearty.
Oh, yeah.
Fruits
Yeah,
and
but you can only eat
vegetables.
so many, like zucchinis when your garden's overflowing. Like zucchini parmesan, you got zucchini lasagna, you have zucchini bread. You're gonna get sick
Just
of it.
fried
But that's the way it
zucchini.
is, I guess. Fried zucchini, yeah.
Do you ride zucchini? Do you know what? My mom.
That's such an
there was. My mom has a huge garden, massive garden.
Oh.
And there was one year she got out like 200 pounds of tomatoes, and by the time she got to 200, she just stopped. She stopped counting. She stopped weighing them, and just kept picking. But she probably approached 300
Yeah.
pounds of tomatoes that
That's
year.
a farm.
And then we all got like different salsas, and there was different pasta sauces, and all like canned everything that you can imagine, and it lasted a long time.
Yeah.
So
Okay, Jen has a really good one, and I'm so on board with this. And it's that North America needs to get on the bidet bandwagon. 'Cause toilet
It's
paper
been
is not the
picking
way.
up.
Absolutely.
It's been picking up. As
Yes,
someone
it
who
has
works
been.
in the plumbing section, it's been picking up. I
Absolutely.
get questions on bidets every day.
Yeah. And, okay, somebody said this once, and I was like, that just made, I was like, this was years ago. This is probably almost a decade ago I heard this, and I was like, okay. And that's when I switched. And there's solutions, different solution. Anyway, they said, if you got shit on your arm, are you going to wipe it off with paper, or are you going to wash it off? And I was like, oh, shit. Like, no pun intended, but like, yeah, you're going to wash it off. So
point.
if you've ever been to Japan, they do it right. Asia in general, they do it. Like you go to Thailand, there's going to be like a weird hose beside the toilet. You can spray yourself off. But Japan, their toilets are, me and my wife were like, after we got back from Japan, like we seriously considered getting like a really nice toilet seat, like Japanese style, but they're like almost $1,000 just for the toilet seat. Like, you can spend like $5,000 on the whole toilet. But man, they'll spray you front and back, hot, warm, whatever you want in between. They spray like a nice scent. They've got music. They dry you off with like a blow dryer. It's just like, and the seats are heated. I have a friend, she lives in Tokyo, And she says she'll just go to McDonald's sometimes to go to the bathroom, and she'll just stay a few extra minutes because it's so nice and clean too. And that's more part of how clean they keep things. But the toilets are incredible. And even if you just had the bidet, it's like, it's a game changer. Yeah.
Man. Okay. I also, on that note, I think we could be more willing to accept other ideas, to like go out and find the best of the best and be like, you know what, that's the best of the best. We're going to do it that way.
Yeah.
And you know, toilets is one of those intimate things that I think, I guess we could do better. So, okay, we've got food, toilets,
Fashion.
what else? Fashion.
We've just got overconsumption in general too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of
consumerism is something that's crazy.
a lot of people don't like to remember this, but if you like to think of the recycling triangle, the first part on that is reduce, which is the first R and the most important one, and then you have reuse. But yeah, it really is kind of down to this just sort of overconsumption.
And honestly, sometimes it's hard to change habits. I knock my wife for this all the time. I get mad, and it's become like a trope in our house and a meme. But like we have a box underneath our sink where we have our reusable bags, right? And you grab some, you walk to the grocery store, get your groceries, and walk home. And I'll come back from like whatever, a trip or after a weekend, and I'll go to get some, and I'll see the boxes overflowed a bit. And I turn, and she's like on the couch, and she already knows what I'm going to say. She's like, I forgot, I'm sorry. I'm like, carry it, walk the fuck back. Like, we're not buying more of them. She's like, we'll use them. I'm like, we're using the other ones already. These things are going to last years. We don't need more. Like, you fucked up. Walk back and get some bags.
That is one of the problems with reusable bags, is we have to get in the habit of remembering
Absolutely.
them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Until you start
just,
shopping at
like,
Aldi normally. In that case, then it just becomes like muscle memory.
Right. And I think that's kind of part of the thing is you have to build it as a habit.
Yep.
Like the same way that whatever mode of transportation you use to get to the grocery store, you kind of have to like, I go to the get groceries, I drive my car, right?
Ooh.
Well, I go to get groceries, I bring my bags, right? Just like making it just part of the habit. That's just part of something that you do.
Do they give plastic bags where you guys are? Here they don't have them at all. Like they don't have any.
They do. They don't restrict them here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there we got rid of them in Calgary. So we don't have the plastic bags, and then we had a bylaw that there was like an extra charge for the reusable bags or for like any packaging at all. And then now we got rid of that bylaw, and we just have and you can buy reusable bags, but no plastic.
This is
bags.
not a bag of dog poop. I got this when I was in the UK. I just Waitrose, just a grocery store. Look how tiny that is. Like fits right in your pocket.
Yeah.
That's a whole
super
grocery
easy.
bag.
I mean, it's not even like the
Super
normal
easy.
bags are bad anyways. I mean, even if you're walking on a bike, you're going to be in a car even, really not that hard.
Yeah, it is the remembering, but you're right. It's the habit.
Just gotta use the little brain, to remember the bag. I was horrible with it, but I've gotten better.
That's good. I'm proud of you, Ethan. I just used reusable bags yesterday, and I didn't really feel anything about it. I want to say I felt good about it.
It becomes normal, right?
It's just
it's
just using the bags that I have to carry.
I've got my
stuff,
reusable bags that I put into my hybrid. I feel so good. I'm saving the earth.
So Skitch has a good idea here. I carry a reusable grocery bag in each of my purses / bags since I don't have a car to keep them in. It's super helpful. Yeah, you just kind of litter them around a little bit. I've been trying to remember to stick one in my backpack just in case I'm out and I happen to pick up some groceries. Then I've got something to throw it in. But yeah, any final thoughts, guys, as we wrap up this show? This is the first time we've gotten this far over an hour in a little while. We had a lot to talk about today,
especially bidets. No, that was good. I got nothing to complain about today.
Absolutely. No wood mugs for me.
What?
Maybe when I get back, but
no gear grinding.
I'm glad there's no woog mugs today. That that feels good. It feels good to just like be like, you know what, life's okay. Things are all right. Yeah. Well, this was fun. Ethan, where can we find you?
Folks, you can find me over at Climate and Transit on any platforms. Nick, where can we find you?
You can find me at Nick the Door on most social media platforms and Patreon now. And Alex, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Humane Cities on YouTube and Instagram. And with that, Ethan, wrap us up.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, train good, car bad.
Two wheels good.
And feet first.